ladies and gentlemen. And of course, I do have some great news for you to start talking tourism. I got to tell you this. Now, Dominica, we have been featured on an article entitled 26 Trips to Take in 2026. And that article, you can find it on www.trips.chase.com. And the article reads, Dominica, the Caribbean's best kept secret. It continues, a 29-mile-long island situated between Guadeloupe and Martinique in the Eastern Caribbean, Dominica, not to be confused with the Dominican Republic, is calling upon adventurous travelers to vacation among its rugged landscapes. The island is full of dense forests and black sand beaches, plus plentiful waterfalls and world-chasing snorkeling. A combination of features you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere else in the Caribbean. And it continues, a few years ago, visitors from the U.S. would typically reach the so-called Nature Island by cruise ship. Now, thanks to non-stop flights from Miami and New York, reaching the island is easier than ever, and the Dominica's accessibility continues to improve as United Airlines increased the frequency of departures to and from Dominica to twice weekly in October. So that's what they say about our beautiful nature island. So you're invited, if you're not here, to come and explore the nature island. And if you're here, invite your friends, your family, or people who are intrigued about nature to come over to Dominica, because here you'll find everything spectacular. And talking about coming to Dominica, today our topic, we discuss the international airport and air access to Dominica. But before that, let's get introductions on its way. My name is Monel Alexis. I'm your host this morning for Talking Tourism. And Talking Tourism is a program of the Ministry of Tourism and Discover Dominica Authority. If you're tuned in to social media, good morning to you. And if you tune in via radio, also good morning to you. Outside is a little bit wet, but we're hoping to keep you nice and warm with our great conversation about the progress and activities happening on the Nature Island. Things that you, we should be proud of, yes? My guest in Studio 2, the name is Samuel Johnson. Good morning to you, Mr. Johnson. How you doing?
Good morning, Monel, to you and your listeners. Thanks for having me back here on Talking Tourism.
Definitely. And Mr. Johnson, once again, welcome to Talking Tourism. Before we go any further, I must say congratulations. I know it's not too long ago, just the other day, you received Dominica's second highest national award, that is the Cicero Award of Honor. Congratulations. How do you feel about receiving that award?
Well, it's like I said, it's always good to be recognized in one's homeland. So first of all, having the opportunity to come back and help in what is by far one of the transformative projects in Dominica. But even before that, being involved in various projects within the Ministry of Tourism, insofar as helping to reinstate and re-energize the tourism industry, especially having been hit twice by Tropical Storm Erica, and then in 2015, and then Hurricane Maria in 2017. And actually that actually was the commencement of me spending more time in Dominica and getting involved. So it's always good to be recognized. It's not the reason why I did or why I do anything, actually, but it's always good. They often say that that it's difficult for someone to be recognized in their own homeland. I wouldn't say a prophet, because I'm not one, but being recognized elsewhere, it's good, but being at home is even better.
Definitely. So once more, congratulations to you, and we look forward to the awesome work that you will continue doing for the island. Now, for those who may not know you personally, can you share a bit about your professional background and your role in leading the international airport development in Dominica?
Sure. So I started professionally. Well, actually, my first job out of sixth form was with Barclays Bank, PLC as it was called at the time, and I often refer to that, although I was there for just about 1 year, But one of the things that Barclays had was a standard operating procedures. So your first day on the job, they'd give you this big books as to how things are done, and that was formative in terms of taking a very structured approach towards work. And I think in some part influenced me going on and becoming an industrial engineer, industrial and systems engineer, which is all about processes, efficiency, optimization, simulation, and all that good stuff. After that, worked with Josephine Gabriel. I used to refer to myself as chief cook and bottle washer, because when the work needs to be done, you'd pitch in whichever form. So that was formative years at Josephine Gabriel, and probably first introduction into business. Working very closely with Mr. Louis Gabriel of blessed memory. Also got the opportunity to interact with a lot of key stalwarts, I think, in the business community in Dominica. Norman Roll was probably one of my mentors at the time. So I was able to you'd always have long conversations and push the envelope insofar as what can be done and what could be done and how better can it be done. He himself an engineer. After Josephine Gabriel went on to the States, where I worked with a management consulting firm, focused primarily on travel, tourism, and transportation. So a lot of work that I did working with several Fortune 500 companies, looked at distribution, transportation, and various strategic projects, from the multi-billion-dollar projects to the $500,000 projects. And then coming back into Dominica to help in whichever way I can. So after Hurricane Maria in particular, at the time I was the head of customer marketing in the global marketing department at Ryder, and it's focused primarily on B2B and transportation, logistics, so same space. So I'd fly back and forth into Dominica to see how I could help. And then one thing led to another. Did work within the tourism industry, looking at the rebranding of the destination, looking at air access options and ways we can grow. One of the things I often tell people that my focus is on results and not necessarily reports. So the opportunity to jump in and drive towards meaningful and tangible results was a very attractive one, right? So not only do you do the reports and all of that fun presentations, but to be able to drive something. So even in coming onto the airport project, one of the things that I think we've been able to articulate is that the impact of the project is not some far distant event that's happening at the end of the project, but what can we do all whilst the project is under development to have what we refer to as quick wins, right? That can be associated with the project. So one of the things we were able to couple on to that was the whole route development aspect, yeah, because ultimately you're building an airport not as a fancy piece of infrastructure, as a vanity project, but you're building an airport as a means to an end, where you're trying to achieve some goal, and tourism being what it is, ultimately we are doing this for economic impact. And how can we grow an industry? We've had the banana industry, we've had a light manufacturing industry back in my day, and then the tourism industry. How can we? What are the pieces that needs to be put in place to jumpstart the tourism industry? So in working on the airport project, I think it gave us a hell of a lot of credibility when talking to the airlines, insofar as to the government's commitment on travel and tourism. And I think we've been able to see some very early wins as a result of that.
And we will speak to those wins very soon. In fact, we have to talk on or speak to the different airlines that we're able to now have access to Dominica.
All right.
So pretty soon. But before we get into that, can you give us an overview of the International Airport Project? Where are we now in terms of progress, and what key milestones have been achieved to date?
Yeah. So The project as designed, it's designed to accommodate wide body aircraft, and by wide body aircraft, you're referring to those larger transatlantic Boeing 777, Airbus A350. The 777 and the A350 are actually the design aircraft for the airport's master plan, and all the dimensions and aligned with handling that. The airport, as a result, will have a runway which is currently 2850 meters, 2,850 meters long, which is a straight in, straight out orientation. There's no bending in, although I think we'll all miss the interesting landing in Douglas Charles. Some aviation fanatics actually look forward to that landing.
By land or by mountain or by water?
By land, when you make that 90-degree bend
yes,
and you're coming
mountains
down the valley. So that unfortunately will not be a feature of the new airport. It's going to be a boring straight in, straight out. The terminal, so on the air side, we'll also have a partial parallel taxiway, and that is to facilitate the volume of traffic, projected volume of traffic for the airport. So what does that mean? That means that whilst a plane is landing, you can have another one pulled back from the terminal and lined up on the partial taxiway for departure. The terminal is going to be about 15,000 square meters in size. It's not by far the largest in the region, but it's a significant upgrade from where we're currently at. And the intent is to find that balance between expansion from Douglas Charles, but also keeping in mind that with the increased capacity of the runway, you will be able to get bigger aircraft. So the change from volume from Douglas Charles to this new airport is pretty much a step change. It's not going to be like a linear change. And what does 15,000 square meters look like? If you were to look at the current Douglas Charles Airport, it's about 3,000 square meters. So it's roughly 5 times the size of Douglas Charles. When you look at neighboring islands, St. Lucia's current airport is about 9,000 square meters. So we'll be bigger than St. Lucia's current and Douglas Charles combined.
You're referring to St. Lucia's International?
UNORA in the south, yeah. And then similarly, if you were to look at, just to show you in terms of relative size, Antigua is 23,000 square meters, but they've been in the game way much longer than we've been. Sure. And then St. Martin, which is the more recent terminal to be completed, that's about 30,000. So they're almost two times our size. So just to put it in proportion. Now we are not a St. Martin. Hopefully, if we get to the point where what we have is too small, that'd be a good problem to solve for. But we have to keep in mind the balancing act between future growth and current operational costs, because you want to make sure your operating costs of the airport is one that is manageable. Otherwise, you become expensive. Somebody has to pay for it. Eventually, it'll pass on through landing fees or taxes or whatever it is. Although the airport is being funded fully by CBI, so there's no real debt associated with the construction of the airport. But you still need to be mindful of the operating cost of it. In terms of the number of aircraft, we'll have about 14 parking positions on the apron, which will be able to handle a combination of wide body, narrow body, regional aircraft, general aviation, private jets. You will simultaneously we'll have 5 boarding bridges, so that is jet bridges connected directly to the terminal, so you don't have to take steps to go down. We'll have 2 remote stands, because some of your low-cost carriers actually do not want to be connected to the jet bridge. They see it as being too slow or too costly sometimes, because they count every penny. So we have 2 remote narrow body parking positions that can accommodate that as well. Yeah, and we'll be able to accommodate 3 wide-body aircraft simultaneously, if needs be. So, I think from a capacity standpoint, we've sort of walked the line in trying to find what is adequate and realistic within our growth projections. The build out of the airport will include all the supporting landside facilities as well. So in addition to the terminal, you'd have, as you would imagine, your firefighting, air fighting and rescue building. You would have cargo facilities, the air traffic control tower, hangar for aircraft maintenance and private aviation, as well as an FBO for private aviation to support private aviation. If at any point in time, if you were to go to Douglas Charles, you will see we're now getting quite a few private jets.
You mentioned FBO. What is that?
Fixed base operator, which is fancy aviation terminology for your private aviation terminal.
Okay.
So folks coming in with their private jets, they would have direct access to that for expedited, customized processing.
Okay.
All right, so you don't have to be climbing up to departure or anything. I did want to have more direct access to the aircraft, which is something that is common in pretty much all the other islands with this service, especially in the Caribbean.
I've seen, yes.
So we're playing catch up in that regard.
Good. And any other feature?
In terms of our operations, we've tried to, within the terminal, include as much retail space as possible.
Good.
So we've made.
Would it be similar to Panama? That airport, I think we walk around for a mile, and I believe they were very intentional about the placement of the different vendors. So to get to the terminal, to get to wherever we want to go, like when I was going to Jamaica, I literally had to walk over a mile throughout the entire airport, all around, so I can see all the stores and get to my terminal.
Well, we're not that big,
so I'm not expecting a mile.
So
but the concept.
The concept is similar.
Okay.
Where we've tried to include some unique features that we've seen in other airports that we've talked to. So, for example, one of the I think unique features is an anchor central duty-free space that we've put for both arrival and departures. So similar to what would obtain in Trinidad and Tobago, in Port of Spain. If you do pass through Port of Spain, you'd have to, the same duty free you pass through on arrival is the same duty free you pass through on departure. And there's also duty free once you pass the security checks. Yeah, so we'll have something like that, but on a smaller scale because we're not as big as Trinidad. We'll also have integrated in the new terminal the executive lounge that has been growing nicely in Douglas Charles, but a much larger capacity to accommodate more passengers that'll be traveling. So there's a lot of little features like that. We've also tried to incorporate water features into the terminal as well.
Water features.
Yeah.
Fountain, perhaps.
Fountain, waterfall.
Waterfall.
I wouldn't break.
You're taking us to Beijing, are we?
I wouldn't break the news yet, but we're still going through the interior design reviews, to make little tweaks. Try to put in as much green features as possible into the interior design of the airport, to try to capture the feel of the destination. Yeah, but that's still work in progress. And then in terms of the actual construction, I think the biggest milestone is getting to the finished platform level, because as I often joke, Dominica is the original NFL, which is no flat land. And planes like flat land.
Sure.
So a lot of the work done to date has been the construction of the culverts, on top of which you can start backfilling the valleys and cutting the hills to get that level surface within the dimensions that are required. So that has gone on very nicely. We're about past 60% of the platform. The terminal side of things, we've reached the level because the terminal was located in the site of a mountain, so that had to be
Broken down.
blasted and cut down to be able um, to get to the level. I say mountain, but by Dominican standards, it'd probably be a hill. um, and so we're now have commenced the foundation works. Actually, we've completed the foundation works for most of the buildings already. So if you were to come to the site, you would see the terminal foundation works is complete and backfilled. A lot of the
Wonderful.
steel is coming in because for the terminal. If everything goes well, we should have a structure, basic structure up by March of next year. And by this time next year, if we stick on schedule and barring any unforeseen circumstances, we should have most of the landside buildings up by this time next year. Yeah,
So we
with
are well on our way to 2027
2027 is the
projected
target.
completion.
Yeah, that's the target time. Yeah, and then a key piece that has happened and is probably now a distant memory is the relocation of property owners in the area. So the whole Joe Burton development, that all had to be done to facilitate the relocation of individuals impacted. A key feature that's on the way as we speak is the construction of a tunnel running underneath the runway. Because when we did the assessment, there were two options that were being looked: either a road going around the airport. And now, keep in mind that this is would be a national road, and the main connection between Marigot and Wesley, or leaving the airport going to Portsmouth, you would have to go through that area. So it was determined that the tunnel would probably be the most expedient and probably the least impactful in terms of the community and the amount of inconvenience that the community would face. Because if we were to go around, then the palm tree area becomes a dead end. So we went the tunnel way. So that has started construction. It's not the only airport in the world, or probably in the Caribbean, with a tunnel under the runway. Actually, we took the conservative approach by having the tunnel a little past Midway, so touchdown would be all the way at the Woodford Hill end. So it pretty much has to have the aircraft running over. In some airports like Atlanta or even Fort Lauderdale, they have tunnels in the touchdown zone. So you can imagine the amount of impact when the aircraft touch down on top of that. But we won't have that. We won't have that issue.
You mentioned inconvenience to the community. I know there's been lots of talk on the environmental impact of the international airport development.
Yep.
What is being done to mitigate the environmental impact?
Yeah. So an EIA was done, and it's very, very interesting that you brought up mitigate, because there's a myth or misnomer on there that an EIA is supposed to be a go no go assessment where it tells you, well, you can or cannot do the project. Really what it does is tell you you can or you can, but these are the implications and these are the mitigating steps to ensure that you minimize the impact. So that was done for the airport, and one of the things that we were very cautious about was surface runoff. Going into the sea and the marine life in that area.
And the river.
So the backfilling of the and the cutting was planned in a way so there would be some filtration before the runoff went to the sea. And one of the things I always tell the developer and the contractor is that we don't want to see like a Red Sea because of the soil in that area, a Red Sea in the Wesley Woodford Hill area, and that to date has not happened in any extent more than your typical heavy rain runoff that happens in other parts of the island not associated with the airport project. We've also have EIAs being done for various other parts associated, not on the side, but the quarries that we are working with as well. But any development project or any industry, there will be some impact, right? And there will be some change that has to be planned for and being mitigated against. And the tourism industry is relatively young in Dominica. If you would think back to the days of our agriculture and bananas and farming, we had almost a third of Dominica under cultivation. 250 square kilometers was the last number I saw, right? If you look at this airport project and probably put all the hotels together, you'd probably get 2 or 4 square kilometers, right? The size of Dominica is 750 square kilometers. So the tourism industry, if you couple the airport project with it, is probably 0.3% or 0.6%. My air math it works out right. But regardless, we still have to be cautious to ensure that we manage and minimize any impact. I mean, the mere fact that we're having these studies done is to follow the requirements, and we've been doing that as much as possible.
Now it's a great time to bring in economic impact because we understand that, or I understand that development and destruction, they go hand in hand. We must destroy something to develop another whilst considering the economic impact and rather the environmental impact.
Yeah.
So let's talk now, economic impact. How does an international airport, or rather how impactful is an international airport to Dominica's economy?
Yeah. So if you again take it from an industry's standpoint, I think the Ministry of Agriculture is out there with their goal as to agriculture's contribution to the economy of 700 million in the GDP, right? The average stay-over visitor to Dominica spends, in today's dollars, about $3,600. Yeah. So if you would take the 700,000 and divide it by the 3,600. Let's make sure I don't do any air math. You'd get a number of about 250,000 stay over visitors, 250, 290 stay over visitors, right? To hit that same goal. So the the airport would be able to contribute significantly to recognizing that goal. And then some people might ask, well, can the destination support 250,000 visitors? Well, if you combine cruise and stay over, we've gone, I think, one of the highest years I've seen, the destination has supported almost 600,000 visitors. Now, albeit a mix of cruise and stay over, and the question becomes, what should that mix look like, right, in terms of economic impact? So, just from a sheer contribution per visitor perspective, it has a direct line to the bottom line. And where do these visitors spend their money? They have to find somewhere to sleep. They have to be transported to and from the airport.
They have to eat.
To and from the sites. They are human beings, so they have to eat. Humans consume services, and they consume goods as well. So all of that trickles down into the economy. We don't have any all-inclusives as yet. So
we need.
Well, all-inclusives again is about balance, right?
We need
I think
one at least.
It's not a conversation that's had at any extent, but I think all-inclusives, if you look at Barbados or St. Vincent and you talk to them as to the numbers and the ability to attract airlines, the all-inclusives, they bring volume.
Yes.
And
yes.
A lot of the hoteliers will tell you about heads in beds.
Yep.
But to get heads in beds, we are an island, you need to get butts in seats.
Yep.
right? And then butts in seats, it benefits everyone because if you have an aircraft coming in, which is 70, 80% utilized, 90% utilized, that spreads out for everybody on the plane, not just the tourists, but also the locals that are going back and forth. Um, so you mentioned BBC, for example, ranking Dominica as this great destination. How do you make it easier for visitors from the UK and Europe to visit Dominica? Not everyone likes to do this 1, 2, 3 stop to get to a
Correct.
destination. If you can make it easier so they could hop on, hop off in your destination, then the money that they would spend overnight in another destination, that can all be accrued in Dominica.
And we could be a transit point to another location.
And similar to what obtains in Barbados and Antigua, where people fly in to connect, we can also do the same if we build our regional connectivity. But going back to the whole thing about destruction and environmental, I think we all saw Dominica after Hurricane Maria, right?
Yes.
And sometimes people see environmental protection as being we trying to save the planet. Trust me, the planet is going to be very, very good. The question is, we protecting the planet for us, right? Because the planet existed before humans and it will exist after humans. And if you look at how Dominica bounced back after the amount of damage and destruction that occurred after Hurricane Maria, actually faster than most people, the mountains were green faster than most people got a roof on their homes. Some
That's
are still uncovered.
resilience.
So I think it's a lot more resilient than we probably give it credit for. But saying that, I'm not saying that to say that we're reckless with it, but we need to, at the end of the day, ensure that we are good stewards of of the space that we occupy, not just for ourselves, but for our children. So the environmental impact and environmental assessment really is ensuring that the destination remains habitable and remains pristine and useful for our children, our children's children. So we really, it's really environmental in the sense of we keeping it for us, and how do we make sure we use it properly.
You mentioned two terms, one resilience and the other environment. Let's talk about how the airport is being constructed to withstand climatic challenges while maintaining sustainability,
Yeah.
rather the sustainability standards.
Yeah. So from a resilience standpoint, the beautiful thing, well, I shouldn't say beautiful, but the timing of the development of the master plan was post, or the redevelopment of the master plan, I should say, was post Hurricane Maria, post Erica, and we were right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, where our sense of resilience expanded from more than just climatic, but also pandemic and health. So a lot of these factors were incorporated into the design, because if you were to flash back to traveling during the pandemic, we had to scramble to get quarantine centers, and in Douglas Charles you'd have a separate testing area, which was a converted cargo shed. So we had the benefit of that experience to ensure that in the layout and the design of the new terminal you could incorporate adequate space to handle some of those testing protocols that were done for the pandemic. The climatic event, you'd have to ensure that you could design to withstand a Category 5.
Have you?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah. We are. Because again, we saw what happened in St. Martin. All right, and wanted to ensure that that we would be able to withstand that. So in terms of the design of the structure, we don't have as much glass, because the first design we had was almost an all glass structure, which you can do for Cat 5, but the cost skyrockets. So the mix between being secured, because we went from all glass to all bunker. So we had to find a happy medium for that. In terms of sustainability, Dominica. The airport is being built in Dominica, which is I just saw on social media a visit to the geothermal site. So the power being used at the airport will have some of the geothermal power in it as a part of the
Okay.
mix. In addition to that, we've also tried to incorporate some solar into the
So
airport. So
renewable energy.
renewable energy, right? And then in the designs, as I told you, we are trying to do the balance between resilience and aesthetics. So although we took out some of the glass, you still have a lot of natural light incorporated into the structure. All right. In addition to the LED lights you'll be putting on to ensure that the place it doesn't feel trapped in, right? And
Okay.
to ensure that we can manage even our consumption, albeit geothermal and solar, but still wanting to ensure that it had that natural aesthetic to it as well.
Okay, great. Now, what has been the scale of local involvement from contractors and engineers to suppliers and service providers in the project so far?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've tried to do is to ensure that anyone who wants to be involved in the project is qualified and meets the standards. The developer and contractor have been actively recruiting. So I think we've gotten up to about 300 Dominicans involved in various levels in the project, from project engineer, surveyors, contractors, drivers, and laborers in the office, administrative, at many different levels. And if you were to go back to even the Joe Burton development, all part of the project, that was all done by local contractors. I think there were 6 different local contractors involved at that point in time. So at various stages in the project, we've tried to bring on as many locals as possible, as you can find them, to supplement with the contractors' employees. Now, you will appreciate the project site. It runs 24/7 because we've been very aggressive on the timeline. So, in terms of having locals be incorporated in some of those shifts, it's not as readily available as we'd want to, but where possible, we do plug them in.
So if someone is qualified at this moment and they wish to provide a service, is there an office or a number that they can reach out to?
Yeah, so they could go through the MMC office, who is the developer, or CR5, or you could send an email to info@iadcdominica.com. That is info @iadcdominica, one word.com.
Okay, great. So while construction continues with the international airport, I know that we're doing some upgrades to Douglas Charles Airport. Pray tell, why were both initiatives launched simultaneously?
Right. So one wasn't. I know there was a rumor mill about one being done instead of the other, but
Yes.
there's actually one was done because of the other. And as I said earlier on, the mindset which was adopted, which I'm strongly advocating for, even in the private sector and the wider community. Don't wait for when the airport is finished to start doing stuff. Start doing stuff now, right? Because we want to ensure that that the transition from Douglas Charles to the new airport is as smooth as possible.
Seamless.
So I say that to say, when we started having route development discussions with airlines, part of the conversation was not, well, we're going to have a airport that is finished in 2027, and we just want to let you know. We were able to quickly pivot. Well, what can you do now to visit Dominica? And we did the research to find out what their fleet was, because one of the challenges with Douglas Charles is it is fairly constrained as to what type of equipment and what type of aircraft can land and operate there. So before engaging some of the airlines, the high priority airlines, we had to make sure that they had the right equipment in their fleet. So you could very easily have the conversation not just about the future but also about the current. And there are several airlines we spoke to and gave us feedback. American Airlines, they had a smaller regional jet. The timing was right for them. They were able to come in with the Embraer 175. The other airlines, they told you straight up, if your runway is under 6,000 feet, the operations guys won't even look at it.
Oh, wow.
Now, at the time, our runway was, I think it was 5,762 feet, somewhere around there. So we are shy of 6,000 by 300 feet. To get some of these bigger airlines like United, also came very close with JetBlue as well. So that was almost like as a former colleague of mine would say, it's a no-brainer, all right, to be able to make the case that with 300 feet more, we can attract these larger airlines now, right?
Question though, lots of persons would have asked, why has that not been done before?
Well, as I said earlier, the fact that you're
Because
making
we could have been attracting the likes of American Airlines and United Airlines decades ago.
Well, those conversations had been happening decades ago, but you have to understand that a Boeing 737, for example, is a $69 million piece of asset. And for an airline to make the commitment of putting it in your airport, there has to be an investment and a payback period associated with the decision. Now, the Embraer 175s, when they came into American Airlines fleet, I know there was this conversation about the age of the aircraft and its old aircraft and all of those fun conversations. The risk associated with putting those specialized equipment into Dominica is less, right? Because that's depreciated a bit. And then secondly, the future prospects for developing the route with a new airport under construction becomes more realistic, right? I remember way back in the day when American Eagle first started coming into Dominica. I remember Charles Maynard, who was the Minister of Tourism back then, talking about all the negotiations they had to go through, and American Eagle said they wouldn't come in if we didn't have 1,500 hotel rooms, 1,500. And that's American Eagle with the turboprops, right? So imagine the convincing you'd have to do when we currently have, if you put Airbnb and hotel rooms together, we only have 1,200.
Yeah.
So we haven't hit the 1,500 yet, which segues into another conversation in terms of number of rooms versus the targets and economic contribution that we're looking for. So there's, at the end of the day, the technical ability for it to happen has to be coupled with a willing partner who is willing to do it and to make the decision to make it happen. So that I think, as I keep telling people, the extension of Douglas Charles is not instead of the airport, but because of the new airport. Okay. Right? Because you are now able to leverage that huge financial commitment of the new airport in sitting across the table, and you can, once you start having a conversation with them and say, and by the way, we're building a new airport which is blah 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 blah, they sit up straight and we can have a meaningful conversation, because they know from a reliable operation standpoint and a future growth standpoint, there is something to look forward to in terms of going into the mainline, right? Mainline carriers, and they have experience with other airports in the region. You've read some of the accolades Dominica has received, so the demand is building. So they can now then take the decision to put in the asset. Now, having said that, the decision to fly the route is not one taken very lightly, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate just how much is involved. It wasn't like American Airlines just saying, well, let's put a 175 into Dominica and that was it. For the first 6 months of operating into Dominica, the Dominica-Miami route was the only route in the American Airlines network that operated with 2 captains. Right? So they had to ensure that their specialized training for their captains and their pilots coming into Douglas Charles before they could expand. So not only did you need to have the special aircraft, you also had the specialized trained pilots to be able to come in, and now with the enhancements that we've made, they are much more confident in the route, and you don't have as many cancellations as we had the first time that it was done. So working closely with Dasper, Mr. Badul at the time, Mr. Pinard now, we've been able to make enhancements in direct response to the feedback received from the aircraft. So not only the runway extension that was done, the grooving of the runway,
Yes.
and actually that piece of work was probably one of the quickest returns on investment of a project. In that it was finished, I think, sometime December, January at United landing in February. All right, and has been operating and started with one aircraft. Now they've gone to two flights a week. The expansion of the departure terminal, as I told you, the new airport is going to be 5 times as big. So how do you feel that when you shift over? But it's not just a matter of filling it, but how does it align with your growth trajectory? And I know I heard recently the minister saying that we need to get up to 5,000 hotel rooms. So there's a lot of opportunity to truly expand the industry. If for example, coming back to the $700 million GDP contribution of agriculture, if we were to do 300,000 stayover visitors, which is what I think Antigua does about 350. They're about St. Lucia is at 400 and something. Barbados is at 700,000. That's a whole different kettle of fish. But if we were to hit the 300,000 stayover visitors at our current expenditure levels, which is actually lower than our neighboring islands, and what do I mean by lower? The amount that we get our tourists to spend on island is less than what they spend in neighboring islands. So, for example, at 300,000 stayover visitors, that would easily have our economic contribution of tourism to over $1 billion. All right, easy with a B. All right, so being able to and then the whole question of capacity and Dominica's size and all of that. If you look at, I always refer to Anguilla, which is a small island to the north of us. Anguilla currently receives over 100,000 stayover visitors, and no one thinks of Anguilla as a mass tourism destination.
Yeah.
Okay, when you think of mass tourism in the Caribbean, you're not thinking of Anguilla. Now, at 100,000 stayover visitors in Anguilla, Anguilla is 8 times smaller than Dominica, or Dominica is 8 times bigger than Anguilla. All right. So we're not looking for 800,000 stayover visitors. we only even at 800,000, we'd be the same density as Anguilla. The target I've heard several targets floated around. It's at 300,000, 500,000. So I think we can hit that number and not change the product that we're going to market with.
I think we moved to 500,000.
Say it again?
I think we moved to 500,000.
Right. So if you run the math on that, you'd see that that is a significant economic contribution from a stayover standpoint.
We do not have much time, but quickly, are there new routes, increased frequencies, or upcoming partnerships that travelers can look forward to in the upcoming season? I know it's winter time. I know some schedules have been changed to reflect that. I know that is going to benefit the festival period next year. I'm hearing some talks of a gospel festival happening next year, so that's something also we can look forward to within that winter period, attracting more flights. So we have just about 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, can you give us an update on what I mentioned, please?
Absolutely, and thanks for that, because, like I said, we've been successful in attracting some of these airlines. So United, everybody knows, United is flying direct from Newark. It's now twice a week, as opposed to the once weekly. So they are coming in on Wednesdays.
Ongoing, as you speak.
Yeah, started back in at the end of October. So it's Wednesdays and Saturdays on United. We have American doing daily service, and starting from the
19th of December.
It's going to twice daily. All right. Contour Airlines, who we've been working with, is now almost daily into Dominica from either San Juan, San Juan or St. Thomas. Caribbean Airlines has been doing San Juan and Port of Spain, Trinidad, and I know a lot of people have been using, especially from Toronto. They've been using Caribbean Airlines to you pretty much leave Toronto at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. You make a stop in Port of Spain and you continue on and get into Dominica at like 10 a.m. in the morning. So I know some folks have been using that for Toronto as well as JFK. Also has a similar red eye into Port of Spain that can be used as well. And then I think breaking news is Liat.
Liat, yes.
Liat is starting a direct service for Dominica into Punta Cana.
Where's Punta Cana?
Punta Cana is in the Dominican Republic.
Okay, there we
go. Not Santo Domingo, but Punta Cana. And why Punta Cana? And that is actually something that is based on a lot of research. In that Punta Cana is probably one of the best connected airports in the region. To almost all of Canada flies into Punta Cana, and a lot of flights out of Germany and Italy, Spain, all connect into Punta Cana. So we think that gives us a good opportunity for reaching, providing another avenue for folks flying in from Europe and even Canada coming into thing, and that's going to be a twice weekly on Liat into Punta Cana. We also have Winair, which has been servicing Dominica out of St. Martin, and Winair is also a great connection point in St. Martin. And
do they still fly to Martinique?
Say it again?
Winair, do they still fly to Martinique?
Not into Dominica as yet, but as a conversation that's ongoing with them, we're actually exploring the potential of having a Canefield Martinique and Canefield Guadeloupe. But that is something that's an ongoing dialogue as to how we make that happen. And Sunrise Airways is also providing increased connectivity and inter-Caribbean into St. Lucia, Barbados, Antigua, St. Kitts, the regional connection. Because I always say that whilst having the direct connections is great, having the regional interconnectivity is even better, because one feeds off the other, right? Because I'm sure in Barbados and Antigua's numbers, they factor in all the Dominicans, all the travelers trying to get to Dominica.
Agreed, but sorry to cut you off though. I know there's a connection to Europe. Can you speak to that quickly, please?
Yeah, so Intercaribbean has started with interline service with British Airways out of Barbados. They also have interline service with Virgin Atlantic. So what does that mean? The ability for passengers to check in the UK and have their luggage be checked all the way to Dominica, right? And the connections in Barbados becomes that much smoother. We've been working also with Contour, and I've been informed that they are really close in terms of having interline service with JetBlue, and that's something that JetBlue was very keen on, because they also keen on providing direct service, but the interline helps to build the case as to how much traffic is coming into Dominica using them.
Well, that's great. I want to say thank you so much for speaking to that. And I understand the importance of developing the international airport while we do some work on Douglas. Charles, could you think, okay, we already have all these agreements ongoing with all these different airline partners. Once the airport is ready and operational, we just simply transfer. There we go. And we continue business as usual. Quickly, capacity. What are we looking like for Capacity International Airport once fully operational?
Well, we should be able to go up to about 1 million passengers with some creative handling, but that comfortably could do 500,000. One of the things though people should know is that Dominica is currently, from an air access perspective, we are in our direct flights where St. Vincent was for up to 3 years after the completion of the airport. So even before our airport is completed, I think we've learned from our sister islands' experience. I was able to advance some of these discussions. And then finally, getting these direct flights into the new airport is going to be much more costly than getting it into Douglas. So everything is a balancing act.
All right, well, Mr. Samuel Johnson, once again, congratulations on your Cicero Award. And thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Tourism, Talking Air Access. I hope this information was very vital to our listeners. I know they've been having questions and concerns, especially where the environment is concerned, and you were able to respond to that. And of course, it's exciting to hear that we have different routes and different ways of getting to Dominica. And of course, guys, don't forget, Express Azil is also an option to get to Dominica.
Absolutely.
So this is why I say thank you to all our listeners for joining us here this Wednesday. We're here next week, Wednesday, from 10 to 11. I want to say thank you very much to Samuel Johnson and to the folks of DBS Radio. And of course, if you're in Dominica for the first time, welcome to the Nature Island, your best, our favorite place to vacation in the world. And remember, whilst you're here, respect yourself, respect our people, and respect the environment. And do ensure you have a fantastic time whilst on the Nature Island. My name is Monel Alexis, and until next week, Wednesday, take care. Up next, we bring you the news update. Yes.